and welcome to Nick's Naturopathic Journal. Join me on the program this week, Ben Stills, my esteemed colleague in quarter three. Me and Ben Stills are going to be talking about ketosis for the next few weeks.
Oh yeah.
So Ben, welcome to the program. I'm glad to have you.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Awesome. And what is ketosis?
So, ketosis is essentially, so normally you're in a sugar-based metabolism. Ketosis is shifting your metabolism from sugar-based to fat-based.
All right. And
simply put.
Awesome. So, I mean, like, how do you do that?
So the way you do it is by doing a ketogenic diet, which is comprised largely of fat. So like 70% of like the calories you're actually going to be eating are going to come from fats, and specifically healthy fats. Like eating trans fats is not going to do it. So yeah, so most of your diet is going to be the fat. So like 70%, you can kind of play with that. And then about 20-25% protein, and then the last 5 to 10% is going to be carbs.
Right.
And like simple carbs, like no refined sugars, like anything with high fructose corn syrup or anything like that is right out. So you're talking like fruits.
Right.
For the most part.
Okay, fruits. You mean so only simple carbs, so no like complex carbohydrates, because that's too much carbs, or?
Well, it's not so much about like simple or complex. It's really just like more about like staying away from processed or refined sugars.
Gotcha.
Because like, yeah, you could eat those, but they're such like dense sugars that like having just a little bit of that is going to likely knock you out of ketosis.
Yeah.
Or severely limit what you can eat that day if you do have like a bag of chips or something.
Right.
You know, you won't be able to eat much for the rest of that day if you want to stay in ketosis.
Sure. I mean, like a spoonful of sugar, that's a lot of your daily calories if you're chopping it up that way. Yeah. And there's really not any nutrients in just like a spoonful of sugar, so you really want to stay away from that kind of stuff. Yeah. I imagine. And also I kind of, I understand that there's a few different, like you said, kind of start with 70%. You could kind of play with that number of fat intake. I understand that there's just all sorts of variants on this, going all the way up to like 90% fat intake, like even lower than 70%. Yeah,
I think that's, I don't know for sure, but I would say that that's more reflective of the differences in people rather than the difference of like, how to make the diet, how to optimize it.
Sure.
So like some people, they might, they might benefit from eating more fat and less protein, or vice versa, What is going to be common is if you want to stay in ketosis, you generally don't want to go above 50 grams of sugar a day.
Right.
And, however much fat or protein you're eating, you want to be sure to, whatever it is, to be eating significantly more fat, whatever that means, than protein. You don't want it in like a 1-to-1 ratio necessarily, unless you're like doing a ketogenic and like a workout plan and trying to build muscle on top of it, because then you'll need the protein. But aside from that, you definitely want it to be mostly fat. It's kind of similar, like it's kind of like that counterintuitive thing, like you got to eat more fat to burn more fat off. It's kind of the same as like when like a bodybuilder or something chugs gallons of water a day. They're doing that to drop their water weight. So it's kind of the same logic. We take in more of something to get rid of it. Okay. The body adapts and says, okay, we can expect more fat coming in. We don't necessarily need to store it. We can use it as a form of energy, and we're out of glycogen anyway.
Sure. So so when you're eating all these fats and not so many carbohydrates, your body doesn't have as many carbohydrates to burn, obviously. So you kind of have to dip into your fat stores, and since you're replenishing your fat stores as you're dipping into them, or perhaps not at the same rate.
No, not at the same rate. So like you're not actually going to like, so basically the way it works is like this. So like you decide to start a ketogenic diet, right? You go to the supermarket, you buy all the foods, you wave bye to the carbs as you walk out of the store, you get home and you start eating, and it's going to take you half a week to a week, depending on how strict you are, just your personal metabolism and all that stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, so like that first week or half week is in all likelihood going to be pretty rough. You're essentially kicking a sugar addiction.
Right.
So a lot of people do kind of have, you know, like withdrawal symptoms, like you get like headaches, extreme fatigue, just kind of irritability, just you know, a lot of stuff like that. But once you get past that point, and if you stick to the diet, you do get past that point, then it starts to get a lot easier. And like my personal experience with it was, it took me 4 days to get into ketosis, and aside from some headaches and, you know, like kicking like the hunger, it really wasn't that bad. So I guess I got kind of lucky. Like, I know a few people who've also done it, and they're just like, man, that's ridiculous. Like, but yeah, once I got into it, I was totally fine. You know, the headaches were gone and everything, and I actually like had to kind of force myself to eat some days because my hunger was just like so suppressed. You know. But yeah, totally worked. Took me 2 months, lost 22 pounds.
Amazing!
Got
Wow.
back.
22 pounds, everybody. And well, you know, on that bombshell, I'm gonna have to say goodnight. Thank you for tuning in to Nick's Naturopathic Journal this week, and we'll see you next time with more info on ketosis, ketogenic diets, and Ben. Night.